only thing we have to fear is
In war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
You found your way to the intersection of faith and politics. Wallbuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thanks for joining us today. You can also join us on wallbuilderslive.com. That's our website, and there you can find even more good news. This is Good News Friday, so we're going to be sharing lots of good news from across the country throughout the day. If you like the sound of that and you want even more, go to our website, wallbuilderslive.com. Click on the archive section right there on the home page, and we've got all the programs for the last 12 months. So lots of Fridays in there that'll have some good news for you. But, David, you've got several stacks to get through today, so we'll see what kind of topics you got in there and whether or not we can get through a
I'm
whole
going to
stack.
start off with this stack.
All right.
I don't think we'll get anywhere close to getting through it, but we're going to start. This goes to something that I have been hearing for the last several years. You may have heard it too. Do you know what the fastest growing group in America is related to religious faith or any type of faith or lack thereof?
If I watched the mainstream media, I would probably think atheism, but I'm going to guess, you mean like a denomination or a type of faith?
Anything related to faith.
Man, I'm going to say, I started to say Muslim, but no, I'd say that's probably not.
No, it's still
not
tiny.
Okay, good.
Now, you were right. I mean, mainstream media, it is secularism, atheism. So,
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
One of the things that I've been told in recent weeks and years is that is the fastest growing group is now up to 16% of Americans who are atheist or secularist.
16%?
16%, yeah.
Man, I have a hard time believing that.
Well, but see, that's what's been happening is with the secularization of the country, 16% now doesn't believe in God.
Yeah.
So that's pretty significant. I mean, that's the fastest growing group. So what's interesting is going back to previous ages, previous years, and figuring out what percentage believed in God. So here we go. Gallup's been doing a poll on belief in God for a long time. They did a poll. Here's a poll they did November the 17th of 1944. Question, how many believe in God? Percentage? Take a shot.
94%.
96%.
96%. Hey, man, I was pretty
Americans.
close on
That's
that.
good, man.
I
That's
don't
good.
usually guess that close. All right.
3 years later, in 1947, 94%. If we go 6 years later, in the middle of the Korean War, in 1953, 98%.
Really?
We go to 1954, Eisenhower is now president. We're getting into the Cold War. We're looking at 98%, 1954.
Wow.
If we go into 1965, beginning the Vietnam War, 98%. If we go into 1967, still Vietnam War, 98% of the nation. 98%.
No kidding.
Can you imagine
So
that?
only 2% that didn't
Did not
say, I believe in God.
So from all this period of 1944 to 1967, we got anywhere from 96 to 98%.
So even in a period of time after the war, after World War II, when you had a lot of prosperity coming in, and you still had
94%.
94% belief in God, and 98% after that in the 50s.
That's right. And so now we've had, and since 67 thereabouts, you've had all the aggressive secularization of the square. You can't acknowledge God. You can't say God at graduation. You can't do all this stuff that's out there that is. So they repeated the same question this year. Percentage.
Well, you said 16%, or you said that's the viewpoint, I guess, 16%. So let's say 84%?
92% believe
92% still believe
See,
in God.
I made the mistake of listening to the media. And I've been saying and repeating what I heard from those knotheads, the fastest growing religious group in America.
That's a Texas term, folks. Knothead.
That's a common sense term. What do you mean a Texas term? Look that up in the dictionary. But I've been believing that and saying that. The fastest growing religious group in America is secularist, and they're up to 16%. Sorry, the Gallup poll, same question been asked for now decades and decades and decades. They've been asking this question for 70 years, and 96%, 94%, 98%, we're 92%.
So even with all of the removing God from the public square, even with the education system having less about God. That means we're doing a better job than I thought we were at home and in our churches at keeping God in the equation, despite the
We're doing a better job
towards
of ignoring the media, quite frankly, and ignoring the philosophy. Now, the indoctrination philosophy works in other areas, but it's not working on this God thing. And the other thing that's interesting is we just had the research department do some numbers because of a book we're doing. And what we have right now is, since 1968 is when the Supreme Court said, hey, you have to teach evolution in schools. And then in 75, in Edwards Aguilar, they said, and you can't do this thing of balanced stuff. It has to be evolution only, not balanced creation evolution. So we've gone through how many education? That's got to be 4 generations of school kids that have gone through, and they get no balanced treatment of science. They get one view only. And we still have 81% of the nation who believes that God made man and God created the heavens and the earth.
So that evolution curriculum is not very convincing.
It's not very convincing, and so the belief in God, the belief that God made man and God made the earth, that's still really, really high, and that's good news.
Very good news, because that's the foundation, man. Without that, everything else falls apart.
From that, you can talk about values and rights and wrongs and absolutes and everything else, but you got to have a starting place.
Right. If you don't have God in the equation, then anything goes. It's kind of hard to stand up and say, these are the principles
these
you
are
should
the
vote
absolutes
for, or these are the
on
things.
whose authority?
Right.
Whose authority? It can't be you're my authority. But if you got God in this thing, you say, on his authority, well, I believe in God.
Yeah.
Well, 92% do. It gives you something to work with.
And
so
shouldn't
that's
that
really
also
good.
make it even easier to win a lot of these battles on whether or not to have under God in the pledge, whether or not to allow public expressions,
Well,
all those
it
kind of stuff?
should, but again, you're talking about the courts, and they have adopted all sorts of stupid tests. Now, there's some knotheads for you. All these tests that they've adopted, and including the dissenter's veto.
So that's a judicial knothead. I just want to check my dictionary. I want to make judicial knothead.
That's a double knothead. A triple knothead is an academic knothead.
Okay, they're
they're the real ones. You got the media and the judges and the academics, and kind of in that order of how severe knotheads they are. So you've got the thing where judges now have said, "Oh man, if you're offended, we'll stop everybody else because we can't have you being offended."
Yeah, the prayer in San Antonio just a few month or two ago for the graduation, federal judge says, "Oh, irreparable harm if this one student doesn't want prayer, we're going to stop everybody else."
That's right. And of course, the Fifth Circuit, fastest I've ever seen, 3 days. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal says, "No, the judge is wrong.
Go
Have
Kelly
the prayer."
Shackelford. Wasn't that was Kelly's case? Yeah,
that's
Kelly's
right.
the one that jumped on that one.
And
Go
jumped
Kelly.
on that and got a ruling from Fifth Circuit. Said, no, go ahead and say God, it's fine. So that's the kind of stuff that's out there. We've had all this hostility, and despite the hostility, despite the judges having tried their best, despite the schools having tried their best, they haven't been able to eradicate belief in God or belief that God made the heavens and the earth, and that's good
That's
stuff.
a strong foundation if you can endure all of that, and hopefully now begin to reverse it. Back in a moment, we got some more good news for you here on Good News Friday. It's Wallbuilders Live. Hey friends, Rick Green here to tell you about a great new opportunity to learn about the Constitution and our Founding Fathers. Chief Justice Jay was exactly right, and never before have I seen so many people interested in doing exactly what he said. He said that every member of the state ought diligently to read and to study the Constitution. By knowing their rights, they'll sooner perceive when they're violated and be the better prepared to defend and assert them. Well, we've done a program that now covers the entire Constitution. It's the Citizen Guide to our founding documents. We go through every clause, every article, every amendment. We get into the Founding Fathers. We talk about what they actually intended. All of these things, and it's right there in a class. And you can actually attend one of our live classes around the country by signing up at my website, rickgreen.com. You can also get the entire class on DVD and CD, so it's like you're in the room. Go to my website to find out more, rickgreen.com. Let's do what Chief Justice John Jay suggested that we do. Let's read and study the Constitution, and here's your opportunity to do that. It's called the Citizen Guide to our founding documents.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. It's Good News Friday. That means we're talking about good news from across the country, victories that are happening out there because folks like you have gotten involved and let your voice be heard. The system does work. We've just got to work the system a little bit. So tell us about some of those other victories out there.
Well, some more good news, and we're going to leave the United States for this. We're going to one of the old traditional nations, but with a new government, an emerging nation, Hungary. How much do you know about Hungary?
Not a lot.
Former Soviet Communist bloc nation, had been a Catholic religious nation, then became a very secular nation, and they've had their share of economic woes and tyranny from communists.
So they
et cetera.
were religious before
Yeah, so was Russia. Ayn Rand with
Yeah.
Atlas Shrugged. She was born in a very religious Russia.
Really?
Yeah. Before the Bolshevik Revolution, you had a state-established church, everything else, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's religious, but that's not very personal when you get a state-established
Yeah,
church.
yeah.
So she grew up in that and became an atheist. So, she's rejected her background because it was a state-established religion. There's even a question out there whether the Anglican denomination is going to exist in England. It's become so doggone secular. It's a state-established denomination. Hasn't had to compete. Hasn't had to do anything for its own survival.
Yeah.
The government fosters it, and so
becomes like a government institution.
it becomes like
it's no
a government,
longer about
and
God.
it's
at all. Yeah.
irrelevant, and so there's actually belief that the Anglican Church is going to be dead in a matter of years because it is so irrelevant.
Yeah.
And that's the way that a lot of the communist bloc had been before it was taken over the Bolshevik Revolution.
You could see where our generations would be turned off to religion and God because
it's irrelevant.
of it. Yeah.
It has no meaning, and that's
or
why
it's forced down their throat at a gun.
and who wants that?
Yeah.
And so that's why, as you look across the Soviet bloc, so many of the tremendous cathedrals became museums under the communist stuff. They highlighted that as nobody goes to church here. We'll turn it into a museum of the state, and they would put things in. So Hungary, on its way back, just has done a new constitution. Drum roll, please. 2 things about Hungary. They have in their constitution banned homosexual marriage and protected the life of the unborn from conception.
Kidding.
Yep. So
Now,
from
wait a minute.
conception-
If they can do that in Hungary, I mean, first, I can't even imagine the challenges of a nation that's been around that long, gone through the things they've gone through of implementing a new government.
Let me throw how unstable that region is. One of their neighbors, Poland. Poland has actually been through 7 constitutions since 1919. So you think of the turmoil and instability, and they're trying to get their feet down, and bless their heart, they have really gotten some good Christian stuff in, good Christian teachings in, and our friend Steve McDowell goes over there and does a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're getting their feet down, and what they keep telling us is, you guys are heading to what we just got out of. We're heading to what you guys used to be.
And they recognize it. They see it, and they say, don't do that.
They say, America, you're heading to what we used to be. You don't want to go there. We're heading to what you used to be, and we do want to go there. And so their positions on faith, religion, marriage, abortion, everything is in a very favorable direction. Ukraine has announced that they are officially a Christian nation, going to be a Christian nation.
Wow.
So this is good stuff, but I just had to point out Hungary. It's just because we think Europe is so secular. And yeah, if you're in France or Spain or some of those places, it is. But some of these emerging things that have been under tyranny and are just dying for freedom, And I
remember you talking about African nations as well in previous programs. So it seems to be happening around the world. God's moving. There are nations that are, like you said, headed right to where our founding was, and getting a lot of good investment in their nations from guys like McDowell going over there and saying, hey, you want to do it like America did it? Here's the principles.
Here's the principles. And you want to do it like America do it, don't do what America did, do the Bible stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's what we used.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. We're not teaching them Americanism, we're teaching a biblical view
There
of
you go.
economics, the social programs, and America did that. But it's not America you care about, it's the biblical principle.
There you go.
Yeah, now let me say I do care about America. I'm big into American exceptionalism,
Right.
but not because we're a 4-syllable word that has an A on each end.
Yeah, you don't have to sell it to other countries as an American thing. You just
It's
say,
a
look, the
biblical
principles
thing.
will work for
You
you
betcha.
if you'll instill them.
And that's why Americans been different, and if you want to be different too, you can be. America doesn't have to be the only exceptional nation in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things for us. So that's
stuff.
good news coming out of Hungary. One more here real quick. We'll take Tennessee governor. Has elections do make a difference, and we got a new governor, Bill Haslam, who was the mayor of Knoxville, who is now the governor of Tennessee. In Nashville, they actually signed a gender identity bill in Nashville. Now, it's a city bill, whatever, and so Nashville becomes the first Tennessee city to put sexual orientation and gender identity, which is pro-homosexual stuff.
Yep.
And the legislature and the governor said, no, we'll pass a state law that won't allow any city to do that.
Excellent.
So they reversed
Because cities
Nashville.
get their authority from the state has
State
the ability
charters,
to do that.
you betcha.
Yeah.
And so the state gets the final word over the city, and so the state has said, we don't want this in our state, and this is not what we want in the city, and so Nashville
Good
may be
for
a
them.
progressive city or whatever, but it's not that progressive. It's still part of Tennessee, and in Tennessee, we believe there's rights and wrongs, and so that's a good thing.
Yeah, there needs to be a country song about that now.
I bet there will be.
I bet there will be too. All right, back in a moment. We've got some more good news for you here on Good News Friday. You're listening to Wallbuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Christians have always believed that the greatest life-changing experience available to any individual is a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And the testimonies of numerous converts confirm the dramatic changes which often accompany salvation. One such testimony of change comes from founding father Noah Webster, who explained, "I was led by a spontaneous impulse to repentance, prayer, and entire submission and surrender of myself to my Maker and Redeemer. I now began to understand and relish many parts of the Scriptures which before appeared mysterious and unintelligible. In short, my view of the Scriptures, of religion, of the whole Christian scheme of salvation, and of God's moral government are very much changed. The power of God to change a life yielded to Him was just as evident at the time of the Founding Fathers as it still is today."
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact Wallbuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.